The mining outpost on the edge of the alien ruins was quiet, almost eerily silent. The wind blew across broken towers and jagged metal structures, carrying dust that had settled there for centuries. Most workers avoided this section of the site. They said strange things lived there, creatures from stories passed down for generations, creatures that should not exist anymore. Yet one human foreman, new to the site, couldn't help but notice something unusual in the distance. It was massive, far larger than any machine or vehicle. At first, he thought it was a strange rock formation, something left behind by the ancient alien builders. But as he walked closer, he realized it was alive. It was a dragon, though unlike anything he had ever seen. Its skin was pale, almost glowing white, but it was impossible to see its true color beneath layers of dirt, dried mud, and thick dust. It had been abandoned, neglected, and left alone for centuries. No one had bothered to care for it, and the signs were clear. Its wings were folded awkwardly, drooping under the weight of filth. Its eyes were half closed, dull and tired. The foreman felt a shiver run down his spine, but not out of fear. It was pity and curiosity. He approached slowly, trying to understand what he was seeing. The dragon's immense size made him stop several times to catch his breath. Its claws were as long as his arm, and its tail, thick and heavy, rested limply on the cracked ground. The dragon's head was lowered, as if it had given up on life entirely. Dust clung to every scale, and bits of hardened mud crumbled under the foreman's careful step. He could see strange crystal-like growths scattered across its body. These had probably formed over centuries, minerals from the alien environment merging with the dragon's skin. The sight was strange and haunting, yet there was a strange beauty in it. The foreman called out softly, his voice echoing across the ruins. "Hello? Are you alive?" He did not expect an answer. The dragon stirred slightly, lifting one eye to look at him. Its gaze was weary, tired of everything the world had thrown at it. The foreman took another step closer. He noticed something that no one else seemed to see. Despite its filthy, neglected state, the dragon's body was strong and muscular. Even under the thick layers of dirt, it radiated power, a reminder that it had once been a guardian or protector, perhaps of this very place. The foreman could feel it. He could feel the energy in the creature, lying dormant, but still alive, waiting for someone to notice it, to care for it. The workers around the outpost whispered among themselves as they watched him. "Stay back. It's dangerous. Don't touch it. It hasn't been bathed for thousands of years. The elders said it's cursed." The foreman ignored them. He wanted to know why this creature had been abandoned, why no one had helped it for centuries. He asked one of the alien workers, an older one with faded markings on its skin, why hasn't anyone taken care of it? The alien worker hesitated, looking at the dragon with fear and respect. "It hasn't needed care," they said. Dirt keeps it quiet. Our ancestors chained it here and left it. Some say washing it would anger it. Some say it would wake things better left asleep." The foreman shook his head. "But look at it. It's suffering. It's barely moving. This isn't quiet. It's misery." He stepped closer, ignoring the warnings. The dragon lifted its head slightly, just enough to show it was aware of his presence. Its nostrils flared slightly as it sniffed the air. The foreman noticed the dragon's eyes, pale and glassy, trying to focus on him. He could almost feel the sadness, the loneliness, trapped in those eyes for 3,000 years. 3,000 years. The number was almost incomprehensible. To think that a creature so magnificent had gone without a bath, without proper care, for so long was shocking. He couldn't imagine living that long and never having someone care for you. The foreman spent hours observing it from a safe distance. He learned how it breathed, the subtle twitch of its tail, the slow movement of its wings. He even noticed small injuries on its legs and under its wings, scratches and bruises that were clearly old but never treated. He realized that over time, the dragon had endured pain, neglect, and isolation, and yet it had survived. It was a survivor, and now it had caught his attention. For the first time in millennia, someone was looking at it not with fear, but with understanding. That night, the foreman could not stop thinking about the dragon. He walked back to his quarters, but the image stayed with him. He could still see the dirt and grime, the tired eyes, the drooping wings. He wondered what it would take to clean it, to care for it, to make it healthy again. Every instinct in his human mind screamed that it would be impossible, dangerous even. But he couldn't shake the feeling that if he didn't try, no one ever would. He felt a responsibility, a human sense of duty, to help a creature that had been left alone for so long. The next morning, he returned to the dragon, armed with curiosity and determination. He talked to it softly, whispering words it could not understand, but words full of reassurance. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to help." The dragon blinked slowly. It did not move much, but it seemed to sense his intention. The foreman reached out cautiously, placing his hand near its nose, letting it smell him. There was a moment of tension, a silent question hanging in the air. Could the dragon trust him? After minutes that felt like hours, the dragon leaned slightly closer. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was enough for the foreman to know that it was not going to attack. That small gesture, after 3,000 years of neglect, felt monumental. He could feel hope stirring in his chest. He knew that if he could get close enough, if he could gain its trust, then maybe, just maybe, he could do what no one else had dared to try. Give the dragon a bath. The first it had had in millennia. The foreman left the site that day, his mind racing with ideas and plans. He thought about how he could clean a creature of such massive size. He thought about the tools he would need, the safety precautions, and the way to make the dragon feel safe. It would not be easy. Every worker would probably call him crazy. The aliens would likely warn him against it. But he felt a growing determination. For the first time, he realized that caring for this dragon was not just about cleaning it. It was about restoring life, about ending centuries of suffering, about bringing dignity back to a creature that had been forgotten. That night, he prepared himself mentally. He reviewed every movement the dragon had made, every subtle sign it had given him that it might accept his help. He knew that this was the beginning of something incredible, something that no one at the mining outpost would ever forget. The dragon had been abandoned for 3,000 years, left dirty and alone, but now it had someone who cared. And for the first time in millennia, the dragon was not entirely alone. The human foreman did not know it yet, but that first encounter would change both their lives forever. The dragon's story, buried under dust and dirt for thousands of years, was about to begin a new chapter, one where trust, courage, and compassion would bring an ancient being back from neglect to life. And all of this would start simply because someone dared to care. The next morning, the human foreman returned to the mining outpost earlier than usual. The ruins were still quiet, with only the sound of the wind and distant machinery filling the air. The massive albino dragon had not moved much since yesterday, but the foreman could see a small change. Its head was lifted slightly higher, and its eyes seemed a little more alert. It was as if the dragon had remembered that someone had noticed it, someone who had not looked at it with fear, but with concern. The foreman took a slow, careful step closer. He noticed tiny movements he hadn't seen before. The dragon's wings twitched slightly. Its claws flexed as if testing the strength in them. Dust and dried mud clung to its scales in thick layers, but the dragon's natural shine peeked through. In small patches, The foreman could feel the power beneath the grime. He could almost imagine what it must have looked like when it was clean, majestic, and untouchable. His heart raced at the thought of helping it reach that state again. Alien workers were watching from a safe distance. Some of them whispered nervously, while others shook their heads in disbelief. "You will anger it," one said quietly. "It hasn't been touched for 3,000 years. You can't change that." The foreman ignored them. He had already made his decision. He had spent the last night thinking about how to approach the dragon, how to earn its trust, and how to make it safe for both of them. He knew it would not be easy. This dragon was not just any creature. It had survived for centuries without care. It was cautious, powerful, and unpredictable. He began by speaking softly to it, using a calm tone he had practiced in his mind. "I'm not here to hurt you. I only want to help. I promise, nothing bad will happen." He took another step closer, letting the dragon see him clearly. The dragon's eyes followed him, flicking between his hands and his face. Its nostrils flared as it sniffed the air, and for a moment the foreman thought it might back away. But instead, it stayed still. That was the first sign of trust. The foreman studied the dragon's body carefully. Its scales were thick, and some of the dirt had hardened into crusts that looked like stone. Its wings, so large they could cover an entire building if spread, were folded awkwardly, and the edges were ragged. Its tail dragged slightly on the ground, leaving a faint trail in the dust. He noticed small scratches on its legs and the edges of its wings, marks that were clearly old but never treated. They must have been painful at the time, and yet the dragon had survived them. He felt a mix of awe and sadness. How could anyone ignore such a magnificent creature for so long? He slowly approached. The dragon watched him, tilting its head slightly. The foreman placed the cloth near the dragon's snout and let it sniff it. Slowly, very slowly, the dragon leaned forward and touched it with its nose. It was a small gesture, but for the foreman, it felt monumental. It was the dragon's way of saying, "I see you. I am willing to trust you, at least a little." The foreman smiled quietly and spoke again. "Thank you. I know it's been a long time, but I promise I will be gentle. I will not hurt you." He took a deep breath and extended his hand, letting it hover over the dragon's massive head. The dragon didn't flinch. It didn't move aggressively. It simply watched him. That moment was crucial. It was the first sign that maybe, just maybe, the impossible could happen. He spent hours near the dragon that day, observing it closely, learning its behaviors and patterns. He noticed how it blinked, the way its tail shifted slightly when it was uncomfortable, and the subtle twitch of its wings when it sensed movement nearby. Every small gesture taught him something about the creature's temperament. It was clear that the dragon was intelligent, far more than anyone had imagined. It understood the danger around it, the neglect, the fear of the others, and it had learned to endure. But underneath that endurance, the dragon still held a spark of life, waiting for someone to care enough to awaken it. The foreman knew that to gain its full trust, he would have to be patient. He couldn't rush. One wrong move, one sudden gesture, and he could lose the progress he had made. He moved slowly, spoke softly, and let the dragon decide how close it wanted him to be. Over time, it began to lean slightly toward him, lowering its head just a fraction closer each time. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was enough. It was enough to know that the dragon was willing to let him in, to let him see it as more than just a beast dot as the day went on. The foreman noticed other workers sneaking glances, some curious, some fearful. "Why does he spend so much time with it?" one whispered. "It's dangerous." But others began to see what he saw. The dragon was not angry or aggressive. It was lonely and weak from neglect. Slowly, the story spread through the outpost. Someone had noticed the dragon. Someone cared. It was a small but powerful shift. By evening, the foreman had made significant progress. The dragon's eyes seemed brighter, its movements slightly more relaxed. The creature had begun to understand that this human was different from the rest. There was no fear, no aggression, just care. The foreman felt a quiet sense of accomplishment, but he also knew this was only the beginning. Cleaning the dragon, giving it a bath after 3,000 years, was a task that would require courage, planning, and patience. That night, as the foreman rested in his quarters, he thought about the dragon's history. How long had it lived here? What had it seen? The ruins surrounding the mining outpost were ancient, older than any human memory, and this dragon had been there, surviving through it all. It had endured storms, neglect, hunger, and isolation, and yet it had survived. Somehow that made it even more remarkable. The foreman realized something important. This dragon was not just a creature to be cleaned or cared for. It was a symbol of endurance, resilience, and trust. It had lived for millennia without anyone noticing, yet it still had the ability to respond to kindness. He felt a growing sense of responsibility. If he could help it, if he could earn its full trust, he could change the course of its life. He planned carefully. He thought about the tools he would need, how to approach it safely, and how to make it comfortable. He knew he would need water, brushes, and patience. He knew that the dragon would not react well to force or sudden movements. Every step had to be deliberate, every action slow and reassuring. He was not just planning a bath. He was planning a moment of trust that had not existed for thousands of years. As he slept that night, he dreamed of the dragon, imagining it clean and majestic, its wings spread wide and its scales gleaming in the sun. He could see the potential of the creature beneath the layers of dirt, the strength and beauty that had been hidden for so long. And he knew, deep in his heart, that he would not stop until the dragon had experienced the care and attention it deserved. The next morning, the foreman returned with a renewed sense of purpose. He carried a small amount of water and a soft cloth, not for the full bath yet, but to continue building trust. He approached the dragon slowly, letting it see him and hear his voice. The dragon lifted its head slightly, almost as if greeting him. The foreman smiled. This was progress. This was the beginning of a bond that could change everything. Hours passed as he sat near the dragon, speaking softly and letting it observe him. Slowly, ever so slowly, the dragon allowed him to touch its snout with the cloth. It was a small touch, almost imperceptible, but it was a victory. After 3,000 years of neglect, the dragon had let a human touch it willingly. The foreman felt a surge of hope. He knew that the next step, the bath, would be difficult, but he also knew it was possible. By the end of the day, the foreman had learned something vital. Patience, trust, and care could overcome fear, even in a creature as powerful as a dragon. He realized that helping this dragon was not just about cleaning it. It was about showing that compassion could exist, even in a place filled with fear and neglect. It was about proving that one person's courage and kindness could change the life of a being that had been forgotten for thousands of years. And so, the stage was set. The dragon, once abandoned and filthy, had begun to trust the human foreman. The bond between them was small, but growing. The foreman knew that the real challenge lay ahead. The bath, the first in 3,000 years. But for now, he was content. He had taken the first steps, and in doing so, he had started to awaken a creature that had slept in dirt and neglect for millennia. The dragon was alive, aware, and slowly beginning to believe that not all humans were afraid or cruel. The next day, the human foreman arrived at the outpost, determined to take the next step. He had spent the previous days observing the dragon, learning its habits, and slowly building trust. Now it was time to prepare for something bigger something. That had not been done in 3,000 years. He knew that cleaning this dragon would not be easy. It was massive, stronger than any human could imagine, and it had lived all its life without care. But he also knew that he had something more powerful than brute strength, patience and understanding. He started by gathering supplies. There were tanks of warm water, long hoses, buckets, brushes, and soft cloths. He even brought a small crane from the worksite, knowing that he would need it to reach the dragon's massive back and wings. Every tool had been chosen carefully, not to intimidate the dragon, but to make the process safe and as gentle as possible. He also prepared a few barriers and ropes, not to tie the dragon, but to guide it if it became nervous. Every detail mattered. This was not just about cleaning. It was about making the dragon feel secure, about showing that he was not there to harm it. The alien workers watched from a distance, a mixture of curiosity and fear in their eyes. Some shook their heads, muttering that the human was foolish. "It will attack," one said. "You cannot touch it after 3,000 years." But others were quiet, secretly intrigued. They had never seen anyone care enough to even consider approaching the dragon, let alone clean it. The foreman ignored their doubts. He had already faced the hardest challenge, convincing the dragon that he was not a threat. The rest was just preparation. When he reached the dragon, it was lying on the ground as usual. Its massive body was coated in dirt, dust, and hardened mud, and crystals from the alien environment glittered across its scales. Its wings were folded tightly against its body, and its tail dragged lazily on the ground. The dragon lifted its head slightly as he approached, its pale eyes watching him with a mix of curiosity and caution. The foreman smiled, speaking softly. "Today, we take the next step. I will be gentle. I promise nothing will hurt you." The dragon made no sudden moves. It simply watched. That alone was progress. It had accepted his presence, at least enough to let him move closer. He knelt carefully beside its head, letting the dragon sniff the first soft cloth he had prepared. Slowly, he wiped a small patch of dirt near its snout, moving gently and speaking all the while. The dragon's breathing slowed, and its eyes relaxed slightly. The foreman knew this was the key. Small steps. One gentle touch, one careful movement at a time. Next, he prepared the warm water. He tested it first on the ground, making sure it was the right temperature, not too hot, not too cold. Then, with the crane and hoses ready, he moved closer to the dragon's massive body. The water hissed gently as it touched the dusty scales, sending clouds of dirt into the air. The dragon flinched slightly, but did not pull away. The foreman paused, speaking softly, letting it know it was safe. The dragon's head tilted, as if it understood. Using the crane for height, the foreman began working on the dragon's back. The scales there were thick and caked with dirt that had hardened over centuries. Each brush stroke loosened layers of dust, revealing glimpses of its pale, albino scales beneath. The foreman marveled at the beauty that had been hidden for so long. It was like uncovering a treasure that had been buried under neglect and time. The dragon shifted slightly under his touch, but it did not resist. It seemed to understand that this human was not there to hurt it, only to help. Hours passed as the foreman worked patiently, moving from one area to another. He cleaned its legs, its tail, and the edges of its wings. He spoke to the dragon the entire time, encouraging it with calm words, telling it it was doing well. The dragon responded in its own way, flicking its tail gently, shifting its wings slightly, and sometimes making soft, low sounds that seemed almost like approval. The foreman felt a surge of happiness. After 3,000 years, this dragon was beginning to feel care and attention, things it had not known in a lifetime. The alien workers could hardly believe their eyes. Some of them moved closer, watching quietly, amazed at the human's courage and the dragon's reaction. They had grown up believing that this dragon was untouchable, dangerous, and cursed. Yet here it was, calm, patient, and even responsive. Slowly, the workers began to understand something important. The dragon was not evil or dangerous. It had been abandoned, yes, neglected for centuries, yes, but it was not violent. It was alive, intelligent, and capable of trust. As the sun began to dip low in the sky, the foreman knew he had made significant progress, but there was still much work to be done. Cleaning a creature this size was not a one-day task. He paused for a moment to rest, sitting on a rock nearby while the dragon lay quietly, allowing him to catch his breath. He could see that the dragon's body was already cleaner than it had been in millennia. Its scales shimmered slightly in the sunlight, and the ancient runes embedded in its skin began to appear more clearly. The foreman marveled at them, wondering about the stories and history they held. He noticed small injuries along its body scars, scratches, and rough patches from neglect. He made a mental note to treat them carefully in the coming days. The dragon's health, beyond cleanliness, was a concern. Its eyes, though brighter than before, still showed signs of exhaustion. Its movements were slower, cautious, but improving. Every careful step he took, every gentle brush, was helping restore life that had been hidden for centuries. That evening, the foreman packed up his equipment, making sure everything was ready for the next day. He spoke softly to the dragon as he left. "Tomorrow, we continue. You are doing well. I know it's been a long time, but I will not stop. I will help you feel alive again." The dragon lifted its head slightly in response, its eyes reflecting the last light of the sun. It was a small gesture, but it meant the dragon trusted him enough to expect his return. That was progress, more than he could have hoped for. Foreman spent the night thinking about what he had accomplished. Cleaning a dragon that had not been washed in 3,000 years was daunting, but he had succeeded in the first step, trust. Without it, nothing else was possible. He understood now that the dragon's fear and patience were part of a process that had taken centuries to form. One human could not undo that in a day, but one human could begin the journey. He had begun it, and that was enough for now. When dawn came, he returned again, ready to continue. He moved slowly, deliberately, speaking softly all the way. The dragon's eyes followed him as he approached, and it lifted its head slightly. The foreman smiled, knowing that the creature now expected his presence rather than fearing it. He adjusted the hoses and prepared the water again, careful to avoid startling the dragon. Every action was measured, every movement considered. He had learned that patience, attention, and care were more effective than force or speed. The foreman worked through the day, moving carefully across the dragon's massive body, washing away centuries of dirt, dust, and hardened mud. Each stroke revealed a little more of its pale, beautiful scales. The dragon made small noises, almost like sighs, as the water ran over its skin. It was clear that the bath was not just cleaning the dirt. It was easing discomfort that the dragon had carried for thousands of years. The foreman felt satisfaction and relief. He could see progress, and he knew that he was doing something remarkable. By the evening, the dragon looked different than it had in the human's lifetime. Its scales shone faintly beneath the layers of dirt that still clung to its body. Its movements were stronger, more fluid. Its wings, though still folded, seemed ready to stretch again. The alien workers whispered among themselves, amazed at what they had witnessed. Some of them even approached to offer help or support, cautiously and respectfully. The foreman welcomed their assistance, but reminded them that patience and care were key. The dragon had to feel safe, and every step had to be gentle. That night, the foreman rested with a sense of accomplishment. The dragon had begun to trust him completely. The preparation for the full bath was nearly complete. He had learned its patterns, its moods, and its reactions. He had begun to build a bond that had not existed for 3,000 years. The dragon was no longer just a neglected, dirty beast. It was alive, aware, and beginning to accept care. And all of this was possible because someone had noticed it, cared for it, and took the time to understand it. Tomorrow, he thought, we will go further. Tomorrow, we will take the next step. And the dragon, who had slept through centuries of neglect, would finally feel the touch of kindness, the warmth of water, and the relief of care it had not known in millennia. The next morning, the human foreman arrived at the outpost, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today was the day he would give the dragon the first proper bath it had had in 3,000 years. He had spent days building trust, preparing tools, and studying the creature's behavior, but now it was time to put all of that into action. He carefully carried the hoses, tanks of warm water, soft brushes, and cloths to the dragon's side. Every movement was slow and deliberate. He knew the dragon could sense hesitation or fear, and he wanted nothing to startle it. The dragon was already awake when he arrived, its massive body stretching lazily as it lay in the dust. Its eyes, pale and intelligent, followed him as he approached. The foreman stopped a few feet away, kneeling slowly, speaking softly in a calm voice. "Good morning," he said. "Are you ready? Today, we start something new. I will be gentle, and I will not hurt you." The dragon tilted its head, and for a moment, he thought it almost understood him. There was trust in those eyes now, trust that had been absent for millennia. That small connection gave him courage. He began with a gentle spray of warm water, aimed at the dragon's snout and neck. The water hissed softly as it touched the thick dirt, sending small clouds of dust into the air. The dragon flinched slightly, but did not move away. The foreman waited, speaking calmly, letting the dragon adjust to the sensation. "See, nothing bad is happening," he whispered. Slowly, the dragon relaxed, letting the water run over its face. It made a low, rumbling sound, almost like a sigh, and the foreman felt a surge of hope got next. He began brushing the dragon's scales gently. Centuries of dirt, mud, and hardened debris came off in thick layers, falling to the ground like small rocks. The dragon remained still, watching him carefully, occasionally flicking its tail in acknowledgement. The foreman noticed glimpses of the dragon's true scales beneath the grime veil, smooth and beautiful, glimmering faintly in the sunlight. It was breathtaking. He could hardly believe that such a magnificent creature had been left to suffer. For so long, the water and brushes revealed not just beauty, but also scars. The dragon had scratches and small wounds, marks from long ago, perhaps even from battles that no one remembered. The foreman made mental notes to care for them later. But for now, the cleaning itself was enough. The dragon's body shone a little more with each passing hour, and its movements became stronger and more fluid. Its wings twitched as if testing their strength, and it shifted its massive tail with more confidence. The alien workers gathered at a safe distance, watching in awe. Many of them had spent their lives fearing this dragon, believing it to be dangerous, untouchable, or even cursed. Now, they saw something entirely different. The dragon was calm, alert, and slowly responding to care. They whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief. "It is changing," one said softly. "The human, he is not afraid." Others nodded, realizing that perhaps the legends they had grown up with were incomplete. Fear had kept them from seeing the truth. The dragon was intelligent, alive, and capable of trust. As the day wore on, the foreman moved carefully from one part of the dragon's body to another. He climbed onto the crane platform to reach its back, brushing and washing away centuries of filth. Each patch of scales he revealed was like uncovering a hidden treasure. Crystals and ancient markings began to appear more clearly, telling a story that had been buried under dirt for millennia. The dragon shifted slightly under his touch, but remained still, allowing him to continue. It was a silent cooperation, a bond forming between human and dragon. The dragon made occasional low sounds, deep rumbles that vibrated through the air. The foreman interpreted them as a sign of comfort, perhaps even enjoyment. The creature, long neglected and ignored, was beginning to feel relief. The simple act of water running over its scales, the careful brushing, the attention, it was all foreign, but it was welcome. Slowly, the dragon began to lift its massive head, tilting it as if to invite the human closer. The foreman smiled, understanding that this was more than just a bath. It was a moment of trust, a bridge across centuries of neglect and fear. As the sun climbed higher, the foreman worked on the dragon's wings. They were enormous, fragile in some places from age and neglect, but powerful nonetheless. Carefully, he ran water along the edges, brushing away dried mud and dust. The dragon's wings twitched, stretching slightly, testing the sensation. The foreman encouraged it with soft words. "That's it. You're doing well. See? Nothing to fear." Slowly, the wings stretched further, revealing pale, shimmering scales that had not seen sunlight in ages. The sight was mesmerizing, and even the alien workers watched in silence, understanding that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Next, the foreman moved to the dragon's tail. It was long, thick, and coated in layers of hardened dirt. Gently, he sprayed it with water, loosening the grime, and began brushing carefully. The dragon lifted its tail slightly, allowing him to reach every part. With each pass, its body became cleaner, its scales more vibrant, and its movements more confident. The foreman marveled at the transformation. What had been a dusty, tired creature was slowly becoming magnificent, alive and alert. Hours passed, and the foreman never stopped speaking to the dragon, reassuring it with his calm, gentle voice. He reminded it that he was there to help, that nothing bad would happen. And slowly, the dragon responded in kind. Its low rumbles became deeper, more relaxed, and its massive eyes seemed to shine with recognition. This was more than a bath. It was the beginning of a bond, a connection between two beings from completely different worlds, united by care, patience, and trust. By late afternoon, the dragon's scales had begun to gleam in the sunlight. The dust and mud that had hidden its beauty for 3,000 years were almost gone, revealing a creature more majestic than anyone could have imagined. Its wings stretched fully for the first time in centuries, and its tail moved with fluid grace. The foreman stepped back for a moment, exhausted but exhilarated. He had done it. The dragon had received its first proper bath in millennia, and it had survived, and even seemed to enjoy the experience. The alien workers could hardly believe their eyes. Some of them stepped closer, quietly offering assistance. Others just stood in awe, realizing that the dragon was no longer the untouchable, feared creature of legend. It was alive, intelligent, and capable of trust. They had seen a human achieve what generations of their species had never dared to attempt, showing care to a creature that had been neglected for thousands of years. As the day ended, the foreman packed up the equipment and spoke softly to the dragon. "You did very well today. I know it was strange and maybe uncomfortable, but you trusted me. That trust means everything. Tomorrow we continue, and I promise it will be easier." The dragon lifted its head slightly in acknowledgement, its eyes reflecting the last rays of sunlight. That small gesture was enough to tell the foreman that their bond had grown stronger. That night, the foreman thought about what had happened. Cleaning the dragon had been exhausting physically and mentally, but it had been worth every moment. He had seen glimpses of the dragon's true self, its beauty, its power, its intelligence, and he knew that there was still more to uncover. The process of restoring the dragon was not just about cleaning it. It was about giving life back to a creature that had been neglected for centuries. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The dragon, for its part, rested quietly nearby. Its massive body, now cleaner and more comfortable, seemed lighter somehow. The low rumbles that it made as it shifted in the dust sounded almost like contentment. It had learned that the human was not a threat, that his actions were meant to help, and that trust could exist even after millennia of neglect. The foreman smiled, knowing that the hardest part, the first step of trust, had been completed. He understood now that their journey had only just begun. Cleaning a dragon was not simply about water and brushes. It was about patience, understanding, and connection. He had built a bridge of trust, and tomorrow he would continue to walk across it, further strengthening their bond. The dragon's story, buried in dust for 3,000 years, was being rewritten by a human who dared to care. The foreman closed his eyes, imagining the dragon fully clean, healthy, and majestic. He could see it stretching its wings, lifting its head high, and feeling the sunlight on its pale, shimmering scales. That vision kept him awake for a while, a reminder of what he had accomplished and what still lay ahead. He was not just cleaning a dragon. He was restoring a legend, giving life to a creature forgotten by time, and proving that compassion could reach across species, across worlds, and across centuries. The morning after the first bath, the human foreman approached the dragon with a sense of anticipation. Yesterday had been a breakthrough, but today promised even more. The dragon, now visibly cleaner and stronger, lay in the dust, its massive wings partially spread and its tail flicking slowly. Its pale, shimmering scales caught the morning sunlight, making it look almost like a creature from legend rather than something real. The foreman felt a mixture of awe and excitement. He had seen small signs of improvement yesterday, but today he hoped to witness the dragon truly awaken. He spoke softly as he approached. "Good morning. Ready for another day? We take another step today. I promise it will be gentle." The dragon's eyes followed him closely, lifting its head slightly as if acknowledging his words. That small gesture filled the foreman with determination. The trust between them was growing. It had not disappeared with the bath. If anything, it had strengthened. The dragon understood that this human meant no harm, and in turn, the foreman understood the importance of patience and careful observation. Today, the focus was not just cleaning, but also helping the dragon stretch and regain its strength. The foreman brought more warm water and brushes, but also ropes and pulleys to help the dragon lift its wings carefully. He wanted to make sure that the dragon could move freely without risking injury, especially after centuries of inactivity. Every action was planned, deliberate, and slow. He moved around the dragon's massive body, speaking softly, letting it adjust to his presence and the gentle motions of the tools. The dragon's wings were enormous, and spreading them was no simple task. With the help of the pulleys, the foreman guided one wing upward. The dragon lifted its head and let out a low rumble, a sound that seemed to echo through the ruins. The foreman took it as encouragement. Slowly, carefully, he worked on the other wing. As the dragon stretched, sunlight reflected off its albino scales, revealing patterns and markings hidden beneath centuries of dust. The dragon's body, once heavy and sluggish, now moved with more ease and grace. Each stretch was like a small victory, a sign of life returning to a creature long forgotten. The foreman noticed the dragon's eyes changing as well. Where once there had been only dull weariness, now there was alertness, curiosity, and even something close to joy. It blinked, slowly, watching the foreman and occasionally glancing around at the ruins. Its senses seemed heightened, as though the simple act of being cleaned and cared for had awakened more than just its body. It was aware of its surroundings in a way it had not been for centuries. The foreman marveled at this transformation. He had known the dragon was alive, but now he could see it truly reawakening. Engaging with the world around it. Throughout the day, the foreman continued to work with the dragon, washing, brushing, and encouraging it to move. He spoke constantly, using his calm, reassuring voice. "That's it. You're doing very well. Good. See, nothing to fear. You're safe." The dragon responded with soft rumbles, small shifts of its massive body, and even the occasional low hiss of contentment. Every gesture, every movement was a signal of trust. The dragon was no longer just a creature enduring neglect. It was becoming a being capable of interaction, capable of understanding, capable of connection. The alien workers watched from a distance, their eyes wide with amazement. They had spent generations fearing the dragon, thinking it untouchable and dangerous. Now they were seeing something incredible, a creature that had been neglected for 3,000 years, responding to care, slowly regaining strength, and even seeming to enjoy the attention. Some of the workers whispered among themselves, debating what they were witnessing. "It is different," one said. "The human, he has earned its trust." Others nodded silently, realizing that fear and superstition had kept them from. Understanding the dragon for centuries. By midday, the foreman had encouraged the dragon to move more actively. He guided it to stand on all fours fully, then gently nudged it to shift its weight and take a few steps. At first, the dragon's movements were cautious, heavy, and awkward. Its muscles had been unused for centuries, and its joints were stiff. But gradually, it began to find balance and rhythm. Its steps became more fluid, its head held higher, and its tail moved with control rather than dragging along the ground. The transformation was remarkable. What had been a sluggish, neglected beast was slowly becoming powerful and confident once more. The foreman noticed another change behavioral. The dragon began to respond to his words and gestures in more intentional ways. When he encouraged it to stretch, it complied. When he offered guidance with a rope or brush, it seemed to understand the purpose. Its low rumbles became deeper and more consistent, almost as if it were communicating approval. The foreman felt a profound connection forming. After millennia of neglect and isolation, the dragon had found someone it could trust. And in return, the foreman felt a sense of responsibility and pride, unlike anything he had experienced before. Afternoon passed with careful exercises. The foreman encouraged the dragon to flap its wings gently, supporting them with ropes and pulleys. At first, the dragon flapped awkwardly, barely lifting its massive wings. Dust clouds billowed around them, creating a hazy, almost magical atmosphere. But with each flap, its strength returned. The foreman could see the muscles flexing beneath the pale scales, the power that had lain dormant for centuries awakening. The dragon's eyes sparkled with a mix of determination and surprise. It had forgotten what it was capable of, and now it was remembering. As the day progressed, the foreman decided to test the dragon's endurance with a longer session of movement and stretching. He guided it to shift its weight from one leg to another, to lift its tail, and even to take cautious steps forward. Each movement was slow, careful, and deliberate. The dragon complied, growing stronger and more confident with each motion. By late afternoon, it was clear that the dragon had not only regained some of its lost strength, but had also become more alert and aware of its surroundings. Its eyes scanned the ruins with curiosity rather than fear. Its body moved with a newfound grace. Its presence commanded attention, not terror. The foreman paused for a moment, resting beside the dragon as it lay down comfortably. "You're doing so well," he whispered. "I know it's strange and new, but you're strong. You're alive. And I will help you feel even better." The dragon made a low rumbling sound in response, turning its massive head to face him. Its eyes, pale and bright, held a look of recognition, almost like gratitude. The foreman felt a surge of emotion. He had never expected a bond like this to form so quickly, but it was undeniable. After centuries of neglect, this dragon had awakened. Not just physically, but emotionally, responding to care and attention in ways that were deeply moving. The alien workers, who had been watching cautiously, could hardly believe what they were seeing. The dragon's transformation was visible too. Awe. What had been a sluggish, dirty, and feared creature was now alert, strong, and responsive. Some of the younger workers whispered in awe. "It's alive again," one said. "It's different. The human, he has changed it." Others nodded quietly, realizing that they had been wrong about the dragon for generations. Fear had kept them from seeing what was possible. Trust, care, and patience had awakened a legend out as the sun began to set. The foreman led the dragon through a few final stretches and movements for the day. The creature, now standing tall and alert, lifted its head high and flapped its wings gently. Dust swirled around them, catching the last light of the sun and creating a magical scene. The dragon's pale scales glowed faintly, reflecting the golden light. It rumbled deeply, a sound that resonated across the ruins. The foreman smiled, feeling pride and joy. This was more than cleaning or stretching. This was the dragon awakening, truly alive again, and it was happening before his eyes. As the foreman packed up his equipment for the evening, he spoke softly to the dragon. "You've done wonderfully today. I know it's been a long journey, but you're growing stronger every moment. We still have work to do, but we will get there together." The dragon shifted slightly, its massive head turning to follow him, and gave a low, approving rumble. It was a small gesture, but for the foreman, it was proof that their bond had grown deeper. After 3,000 years of neglect, trust had finally been established. That night, the foreman rested with a sense of accomplishment he had never known. The dragon had not only received care, but had begun to awaken physically and emotionally. It was stronger, more aware, and more responsive than ever before, and it was only the beginning. He knew the journey was far from over, but he also knew that he had accomplished something extraordinary. Trust had been earned, strength had been regained, and a legend that had slept in dust for millennia had begun to rise again. The foreman closed his eyes, imagining the next steps. There would be more cleaning, more stretching, and more care. But he also imagined something else: flight. One day, this dragon, now awakened, would lift into the air, spreading its wings after centuries of neglect. He could see it soaring above the ruins, powerful, majestic, and free. And he would have played a part in that. He would have been the human who gave life back to a creature that had long been forgotten. The morning sun cast a warm, golden light over the ruins as the human foreman arrived at the outpost. Today felt different. There was a quiet energy in the air, a sense that something extraordinary was about to happen. The dragon, now clean, strong and alert, lay nearby, its massive wings partially stretched and its tail flicking slowly across the ground. Its albino scales gleamed faintly in the sunlight, reflecting a life that had been hidden under centuries of neglect. The foreman felt a mixture of awe and excitement. After days of careful work, patience, and trust, the dragon was no longer just awake. It was alive in every sense of the word. He approached slowly, speaking softly as always. "Good morning," he said. "Today we go a little further. I want you to move, stretch, and feel your strength. I promise it will be safe, and I will be with you every step." The dragon lifted its head, pale eyes meeting his. There was recognition there, a clear understanding that this human meant no harm. The foreman smiled, knowing that their bond had grown stronger than he could have imagined. Trust had been earned, and now it was time to help the dragon fully realize its power. The first task of the day was flight preparation. The foreman had been planning this carefully. He had studied the dragon's wings, its strength, and its behavior over the past days. Today, he would encourage it to lift its wings fully and test their power. Using ropes and pulleys, he gently guided one wing upward, then the other. The dragon flapped them slowly at first, creating gusts of wind that stirred the dust around. The ruins. Its movements were deliberate, controlled, and powerful. The foreman watched closely, speaking softly, reassuring the dragon. "That's it. Good. Feel your strength. You're ready." The dragon let out a deep, low rumble, and for the first time in centuries, it flapped its wings fully, lifting its massive body slightly off the ground. Dust swirled around them in a golden haze, and the alien workers watching from a distance gasped in amazement. They had spent generations fearing this dragon, believing it untouchable and dangerous. Now they saw something extraordinary. A creature, long neglected, cleaned, cared for, and restored to strength by a human. The dragon hovered for a few seconds, powerful muscles flexing under its pale scales, before gently lowering back to the ground. The foreman felt a surge of pride. This was progress, a tangible sign of the dragon regaining its freedom. Next, the foreman guided the dragon through more stretches and movements. He encouraged it to rise fully to its feet, move its tail with control, and shift its weight across its legs. Each movement became smoother, more fluid, as the dragon remembered what it was capable of. The pale scales gleamed under the sunlight, and the dragon's eyes shone with a new alertness. It was alive, fully aware of its strength and beginning to enjoy the sensation of movement and freedom again. Throughout the day, the foreman continued to speak softly, guiding and encouraging the dragon. "You're doing very well. Feel your strength. You've been patient for so long. Now it's your time." The dragon responded with small, low rumbles, tail flicks, and wing stretches. It was clear that it understood him, that it trusted him completely. The bond between human and dragon was now undeniable. For the first time in 3,000 years, the dragon had a companion. It could rely on a being who cared for it, and had helped it rediscover its own power. By midday, the foreman decided it was time for a test. He had prepared a small, cleared area of the ruins for this purpose, safe from obstacles and debris. He guided the dragon there and encouraged it to take a few steps, then a cautious hop, and finally a small leap into the air. The dragon hesitated for a moment, its pale eyes scanning the surroundings, but the foreman's calm voice reassured it. "You can do it. I am here. You're safe." With a deep rumble, the dragon lifted off the ground, its wings fully extended, catching the air beneath them. It hovered, then moved forward slightly, testing its balance and strength. The foreman's heart raced with excitement. This was more than cleaning or care. This was restoration, revival, and liberation all at once. Alien workers were mesmerized. Some had never seen a dragon move so freely, let alone trust a human enough to fly near them. They whispered among themselves, amazed and humbled. "It is magnificent," one said softly. "The human, he has done the impossible." Others nodded, realizing that what they had believed about the dragon was only a fraction of the truth. Fear and superstition had kept them from seeing its potential, and now they were witnessing a legend brought back to life. The foreman continued the exercises throughout the afternoon. He guided the dragon to flap, stretch, and even take short glides. Each attempt revealed more strength, more control, and more confidence. The dragon's scales glimmered, its muscles flexed, and its eyes shone with alertness. It moved with a combination of grace and power, a creature reborn after millennia of neglect. The foreman felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Every day, every patient step had led to this moment. Trust had been earned, strength had been restored, and the dragon was beginning to embrace life again. During a brief pause, the foreman approached the dragon and placed a hand gently on its massive snout. "You're doing wonderfully," he whispered. "I know it's strange, but look at yourself. You are strong, beautiful, and alive. You've waited so long, Venice, and now it's your time." The dragon lowered its head slightly, as if in acknowledgement, letting the human feel the connection between them. It was more than trust. It was respect, understanding, and a bond forged through care, patience, and compassion. As the sun began to set, the foreman guided the dragon through one final exercise for the day. He encouraged it to lift off fully, spread its wings wide, and hover for a few moments before landing gently. The dragon complied, muscles flexing, wings powerful and precise. Dust swirled around them, sparkling in the golden light. The alien workers watched in awe, some stepping closer, unable to resist. Witnessing this spectacle firsthand, the dragon had fully awakened, physically and emotionally, and the foreman had been the key. Afterward, the dragon settled back onto the ground, its massive body relaxed but alert. It made a low rumbling sound, almost like contentment, and nudged the foreman gently with its snout. The human smiled, feeling a surge of emotion. This gesture, small as it was, symbolized everything: trust, gratitude, and the deep bond that had formed between them. For 3,000 years, the dragon had been alone, neglected, and forgotten. Now it had someone who cared, someone who had helped it remember its own strength and beauty. The alien workers approached carefully, some bringing water and soft brushes to help, others just standing in awe. They had witnessed a transformation they had thought impossible. The dragon, once feared and avoided, was now clean, strong, and cooperative. Its eyes held intelligence, awareness, and even something like joy. The human foreman had not only restored its body, but had helped awaken its spirit, bridging the gap between species and proving that care and patience could achieve what brute force or fear never could. That night, the foreman rested nearby, keeping watch over the dragon. It lay close to him, massive body relaxed, breathing slow and steady. Its wings occasionally twitched, as if dreaming of flight, and its tail moved lazily across the ground. The foreman felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had done more than clean a dragon or guide its movements. He had restored life, trust, and hope to a creature that had lived for millennia in neglect. He understood now that their journey was complete in one sense, but ongoing in another. The bond they had formed would continue to grow, as with the dragon's strength and confidence docked by the following morning. The dragon was fully alert and active. It greeted the foreman with a small, enthusiastic rumble, nudging him gently as he approached. It spread its wings and lifted slightly off the ground, testing the air, then landed gracefully, muscles rippling beneath its gleaming scales. Foreman watched, smiling, realizing that the dragon had fully embraced its restored power. It had survived centuries of neglect, endured isolation and dirt, and now it stood majestic, alive and aware, ready to reclaim its place in the world. Human foreman and the dragon had become partners, companions, and friends. What had begun as a cautious approach and a gentle touch had transformed into a deep bond, built on trust, patience, and care. The dragon, once dirty, weak, and isolated, had become strong, beautiful, and aware. The foreman had not only given it a bath after 1,000 years, but had given it a chance to live fully again. And in return, the dragon had given him something priceless, the experience of connection, trust, and the knowledge that one being's courage and care could change a life or even an entire legend.